If you are wondering whether your company's website is as effective as it could be, then you will appreciate the information from today's guest. Website designer and digital strategist Connie Holen's episode is filled with tips, advice, and design secrets to help you polish up your website. Welcome to the family to all of our first-time listeners. Did you know that we have over 400 episodes? Make sure you go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and you can listen to our entire catalog of shows. If you're a regular listener, thank you. We appreciate you coming back week after week. And finally, if you get value from any of our shows or episodes, we are grateful in advance for you posting a review on iTunes. Thank you for tuning into the Fitness Business Podcast. I am your host, Dory Nugent, and today our guest, Connie Holen, will educate us on the 5 steps to website audits. Connie is a web designer as well as a digital strategist for both fitness and yoga studios. We will hear from Connie in less than 2 minutes. First, a huge thank you to Tech Summit for supporting our show.
Australia's only technology summit for the fitness and recreation industry is a face-to-face event in Sydney on February the 22nd and 23rd, 2022. The aim of this summit is to improve the efficiencies of your business and effectiveness of everything you do for your members and your community through technology. After this 2-day educational event, you'll be aware of the latest tech trends and the impact that they have on your business. Go to fitnessindustrytechsummit.com.au. That's fitnessindustrytechsummit.com.au. And to register, use the code FBP22. That's FBP22 to save $100 on your registration. That's fitnessindustrytechsummit.com.au.
Thanks so much to the Fitness Industry Tech Summit. And if you'd like to learn more, make sure you check out www.fitnessindustrytechsummit.com.au.
Get your pen ready now for Keep Me's Fit Bizpiration.
What are your 3 top tips for auditing your website?
Okay, number 1, make space for it. So set aside an hour. Actually, it'd be great if you put it in your calendar for once a year, but make space for it. Don't plan to do it just on the run. Sit down and actually take a look at it. Take a look at it on your phone and different devices, and make space. Number 2 is to be honest with yourself. So I would say picture yourself in your least focused time or your least focused day. You know, standing in line someplace, kind of on the run on your phone. Picture your client in that space, and can they get through your website easily? Not, if they've got a giant computer in front of them and all the time in the world, but be honest with yourself when you're auditing your website. And then number 3, plan the follow through. So auditing your website alone, not going to do anything for your business. So whether it's small tweaks or you decide that it's time for a complete overhaul of your site, actually get that scheduled and get that planned, because you can audit all you want, but if you don't actually follow through and make those improvements of those things that you've identified, it's not going to benefit your business.
Next week, I interview Ian Mullane, the CEO of Keep Me, and we talk about making technology work for you. After this week's full interview, I'll introduce you to Ian, and you'll hear why you need to come back next week to hear his interview. MyZone has pioneered unique wearables with talking point technology that makes the difference. Reach more members of your community and keep them engaged for longer through motivation and gamification wherever they choose to work out. In the gym, at home, or outdoors, we're stronger together. Get in the zone at myzone.org. Let's transition into this week's interview with Connie Holen. Welcome back for another episode of the Fitness Business Podcast. I have with us today Connie Holen. She is a web designer and digital strategist, and she's also an industry expert. Connie, welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, really excited. I saw you were out at URSA 2021. I really enjoyed your presentation, and I was like, we have to have her on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much. That's awesome. I've listened to the podcast for years, so it's really awesome just to be here.
Yeah. What made you decide to be a presenter at URSA? Was that your first year presenting, or have you been doing that multiple times?
That was my first year presenting at URSA. I presented at Mind Body Bold and a few other industry events, but that was my first time at URSA. And I was really just kind of interested in seeing what that crowd was like. I think it's a little different niche than some of the events I've been at. So I was just looking for a new experience and looking to meet some new people.
Let's get started with our first question. And that is really, how often do you need to redesign your website?
Yeah, that's a great question and one I get all the time. I think people realize that, yes, obviously, if I've significantly added or subtracted services or changed my target market or changed something big, obviously I need a new website. But it's that in between where, it's not a pandemic year. We're not making drastic changes. It's that in between of, when do I need to do something? Or am I just changing something because I'm bored with it? I want to change something. So that's why I love this idea of having a website audit. And I would say there's no hard and fast rule that you need to redesign your website every 3 years or anything. But I think you do need to at least annually check in, give your website a look, give it kind of run it through these audit questions and decide if it's time for a brand new website or if it just needs a little fine tuning and a little tweaking to stay up with where you're at right now.
Yeah, you actually just literally took my next question. And I was going to ask you, how does a business decide whether they need to just tweak it and redesign a couple things, or if they just need to overhaul and get a brand new website?
Yeah, I love that question as a web designer, of course. But, it's often a lot of the idea of, when you're cleaning out your closet, do you go in and you just start reorganizing things and moving things? But sometimes, you're like, I need to just take everything out and just put back what I want to keep and get rid of everything that didn't make the cut. So it's kind of a fine line there of whether, I can make a couple changes, strategic changes, and it's going to be fine for another year, another 6 months, or there's too many changes to make. It's not, the flow isn't working. There's too many kind of roadblocks in it. I'm not quite sure where I'm guiding people. When it gets to that point and you start making structural changes to where your links are going, what pages are happening on your site, what pages you need, that's when it's sometimes easier to just pull everything out of the closet and start fresh and rebuild it up the way you want it. But if it's just some text, some images, and some things we'll talk about in the next 20 minutes or so, there might be just some small tweaks that can get you another year down the road.
All right, so let's talk about tweaking that website. What are the very basics that a business would need to look at first?
All right, I'm going to boil this down to 3 simple things, and that's who, what, and where. And I'm sure your business owners are going to be like, I've got these. These are easy. But I'm really going to encourage you to open up your website and look for them, because these are things that start going missing on websites that have been around for a while when maybe a couple different people are in charge of updating it. Some things get deleted, some things get moved around. And these core things are so important for giving your website visitors the context that they need to continue to engage in your site and for starting to build that trust with them. So the who, what, and the where. The who is your business name. Usually this is in the logo, but I've seen this sometimes where the logo is so small that you can't read the business name in the logo, or you're using a logo mark instead of a full logo. And so the name of the business actually isn't even present on the homepage. So don't miss that. The second is what, and that's the primary service that you're offering. This is not like really cute language, kind of working around, trying to be real fancy here. This is literally the words that someone might type into Google to find a business like yours. That needs to be front and center on your homepage too. And then the where, city and state. This is something that surprisingly I get leads that I can't even figure out where in the world they're located. And as a fitness studio or a gym, like that is really important, especially now with all the age of virtual fitness. You could have a business name where, there's a similar business in a different country. And with virtual fitness, it might not be real apparent that that's not the one in your hometown that you're looking for. So your city, state, your primary service, and your business name have got to be front and center on your website. That's not only really important for those visitors to have that trust in that context and to just be kind of grounded in what this business is, but it's also really important for Google too, or other search engines, so that they know those key pieces of information. But yeah, go actually look on your website, because people are surprised all the time when I'm like, I can't tell where you're located. And they're like, oh, surely it's on there, and it's not. So go look on your homepage for those three things: the who, what, and the where.
So it's funny that you say that. I just recently was looking for a guest, right? And I knew the club that they worked at, and all I wanted was simple contact information. I just wanted a phone number that I could call the club. It was buried. It was the hardest thing to find. So I find that really interesting that you say that. And that kind of just brings me to, not to get off track, but a question as far as, I hear so many businesses, they struggle on who do they hire to, like, what do you look for when you're trying to hire a web designer?
Oh boy, I love that question too. There's a bunch of things. Here's like my kind of top list off the top of my head. One, I think it's important that they understand your industry. It's really frustrating for fitness studio owners to have to explain their scheduling software needs and what their industry, and that they've got an intro offer that leads to a membership or whatever it is. So someone that's familiar with the industry, I think, is important. I have a lot of clients who come to me, they're like, we've got a web designer, but they can't figure out how to integrate our scheduling software. They're not familiar with it. So that would be one. A big thing I would ask is what the training is like on the back end of that web design project. Will you, as a business owner or your team, be able to update that website yourself? Just basic changes, maybe not the fancy stuff, but can we update pricing? Can we update text? We really saw this in the pandemic, where pandemic hit and so many businesses couldn't make basic changes to their website that was like critical that were made that day. So I would ask, am I going to be able to update this website, and what kind of training do you provide as a web designer? That's one of my pet peeves in the industry, where you'll get me on a tangent here, but old web design stuff, the web developer held the keys to the website, and you had to go through somebody else who might not be as available as you are to make changes. That's no longer necessary. So I would find someone who builds something that you can have a minimal amount of control on. I think those would be my two things. I think also for a brick and mortar business, someone who understands basic on-site search engine optimization. That can be a marketing thing as well, but optimizing the basics of the pages to be found in a local area is pretty key to the whole web design process.
All right. Well, thank you, because I kind of got you off course there a little bit. So
let's be a whole nother episode, Dory.
Can you tell? I'm just so excited and very intrigued by the whole web design. All right, let's rewind. You talked about trust. So how do I engage the visitor once they have a basic level of trust?
Yeah, so we just talked about the who, what, where, right? That trust element. The next thing is the why. So, and particularly as the visitor, as the website visitor, why should I care? What's in it for me? A lot of websites you might find that might be a little dated they have a lot of we speak. So it's, we do this, our history is this, our services, this is, what we believe. Flipping that to more of a you context to really talk to the website visitor and put their needs and their desires and their wants right in front of them. That's really how you can go that next step from trust to engagement. So look at your website, the text on your website, particularly your homepage, and just ask the question, like, what's in it for the visitor? Like, are they seeing that? Am I spelling that out for them? Don't make them read in between the lines. So if you, whatever a headline example would be, if you want to get in shape faster with our full body boot camp classes, or classes that fit into your lunch break, whatever it is that's like makes you different and makes you set apart, put that into your headlines, put that in the terms that your clients or your prospects are going to engage them. It's going to get them interested and say, okay, I'm interested. I'm going to scroll. Tell me a little bit more. So that would be the next kind of engagement piece, the why. Why should I care?
Okay. So we have the 4 audit questions: the who, the what, the where, and the why. So now how do we close the deal? Like, what's the 5th one?
All right. Then we move into the how, right? We're keeping it really simple, right? So the how, and particularly 3 pieces to this: how do I book? How do I buy? And how do I begin? So you can have the best website with all kinds of great information, great testimonials, all of that. But if you don't make that clear path to actually getting their credit card out, booking the class, getting their butt into the gym, you're not gonna close them, right? You're not gonna make them a client. So the how do I do those basic things. For the how do I book, if you're class or appointment based, can they book on your site? Or is that very clear on how they do book? Does that work? Does that process work really well on mobile too? You need to check it on different screen sizes. Can you make that path any clearer? The schedule page is usually the number 2 most frequently trafficked page of a website after the homepage. So even if people aren't actually going to book, if they're thinking about becoming a client of your business, they're going to look at the schedule. They're going to look at how easy it is to book, what your class times are, what your availability for appointments are, those type of things. So don't hide that. Make that a really clear path of how that process works. How do you buy is the second part of that. The pricing page comes in at 3 usually on the most popular pages on a site. Again, even if you don't have all your pricing listing, people want to see what that baseline pricing is. Studies show that if there's no pricing on a website, people will assume it's too expensive. So generally at least put like an intro offer, if not all of your pricing on there. If you can let them buy online, that's even better. And then how do I begin? There should be a portion of your website, a page that's set aside just for those new clients. This is where you're going to mention any of your intro offers, any frequently asked questions that you have that are kind of hold back new customers. Answer those right there. Give them a place that tells them where that next step is, that first step, and make it really easy for them. I tell a story often about when I was looking for a float spa nearby, and I got to the website and they were promoting this intro offer all over the website, but nothing was clickable. I couldn't get into the cart with that intro offer, that special starter package. And so I left because I didn't want to just buy something else or book. I wanted the special starter package. So anytime you promote something or a first step, you better make sure it's clickable and it goes someplace and they can actually complete that action.
So you bring up a good point with the clickable. There used to be a saying that everything should only be like 1 click away or 2 clicks away. What is the rule of thumb on that?
Yeah, I think the least amount as possible. I think 2 clicks to being in a shopping cart at any given time for that intro offer or that starter package is a good rule of thumb. And you can do that pretty easily by having the sales page, like I talked about, that beginner new client page, having that as a sales page for that starter package, and then having that linked in the navigation as new start here, or just promoting that offer, first 30 days, half off or whatever. So it's always in the navigation. It stays on every page. You click on that and then you click add to cart once you read a little bit more about it. So I would aim for 2 or less for that first intro package, 2 or less clicks.
Good. That's a good rule of thumb. I'm glad you cleared that up. Now, something else that you just said that's such a big debate I get. People that come on from the sales department, and then I get the web people come on, and there's always this argument of, do you put your prices on the website or don't you put your prices on the website? And I love to hear that you supported putting your prices on the website.
I generally do, yes. At least a baseline, if not, just a starting at type thing. I have worked with some clients who are more high-end personal training studios, and they didn't want to they're going for the prestige thing. They didn't really want to put all their prices on there. And I get that too. In that case, we at least put the starting package on there. So they know at least what a baseline is. And that helps weed out people as well. But I'm a fan of transparency and having some prices on there for sure.
Yeah. If I put my sales director hat on, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if we want to get them through the door, and then we want to use our sales magic on them. But then if I put my consumer hat on, it's frustrating when you want to just know how much something is and you can't find it. And you're like, oh, I have to call, or, oh, I have to go in, which right. I know that's what they're trying to do, but yeah.
Right. And another thing to keep in mind too on pricing pages is, I see this a lot too. You don't have to put every pricing option you have either on there. There's some things that might be an upsell or a downsell in that sales process that you're talking about that don't need to be public on the website. So, make it work in your sales process, what you use that pricing page for.
What about the design? What could you tell us about the design?
Yeah, boy, there are all kinds of trends all the time on design. I would say first off, don't get sucked up into the trends, the basic trends that are colors and fonts and fancy website animations. You might see a site and be like, that's shiny object. That's beautiful. I want that. That stuff's not probably going to be worth the ROI. Redesigning your website regularly, it's not really the changes that are going to help your website sell. Those other things that I just talked about, those are going to help your website actually sell and convert prospects into clients. But general design trends, you don't really need to chase too much. The exception to that, and I really hesitate to call it a trend even, but you will start hearing a lot more about it, I think, in the next few years, is accessible web design. And so all that really means is how easy people can use your website. Particularly what's being talked about a lot in design circles right now is how people that are vision or hearing or movement impaired, if they can access your website and if they can get through the checkout process. And really this comes down to like just basic good design anyway, because you don't have the same eyesight as I do. People with dyslexia or other challenges oftentimes use screen readers. There's just a lot of different people who use the websites that will probably be wonderful clients for you. So it's really just basic good web design to follow those principles that make the website easy to navigate, not cluttered. Some of the key things there are making the fonts big enough. There was this trend a couple of years ago of really pretty, dainty, small, thin fonts. We want to make sure that they're big enough that the people who are even don't have the best eyesight can read them. And I'm sure you've been on a website where you can't make out the text color that's on the background. It just hurts your eyes to try to read. So I think people are becoming more aware of that. And especially if you did your own site or you did your site, in-house, those are things to check to make sure that the fonts are all big enough, that the color contrasts are big enough that they can be read. And then going back to, what I was saying of clearing that nice path to checkout, that all really helps and make it accessible for people everywhere too. You have people who, might have a harder time viewing it, but you also have the busy mom standing in line at the grocery store on their phone, juggling a toddler too. And the more clear and the more straightforward and easy to read and easy to navigate you can make the site is going to help everybody. So accessible web design is something that is on trend, is being talked about more, but really that just comes down to making a really solid, a really easy to use website for everybody. And then outside of that, I wouldn't chase too many design trends.
What about photos versus fonts? Is there a percentage of how many photos you should have on each page versus how much writing? Because I've heard so many people say, oh my gosh, it's so much writing. Or then other people are like, oh my God, there's so many pictures. I can't get to the information that I want. Is there a rule of thumb to that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a rule of thumb that I can think of. But if you think, oh, there's so much text, probably good to break it up, either with some bullet points, edit things down, add some photos, mix that up. If it looks like a big chunk of text to you, it does to everyone else too. So probably edit that out. Photos as well, enough to communicate. There's a pull and a contrast there, all the time. Google likes words. So we like words on our site too. People like pictures, but pictures, slow down sites a little bit because they're bigger files. So a happy medium in between. I would say if you can scan the text, read the headlines, and get a feeling for the images. I try not to go too big a chunk of text without an image or a graphic of some sort. But yeah, it's kind of a happy balance. So I'd say just kind of go with your gut on that. If it feels really photo heavy, you may love all those photos, but if it feels really photo heavy, maybe take some out, use them on different pages.
And you also talked about fonts. Same thing. I've heard too many fonts, not good. How many fonts would you recommend a business to put, or different styles of fonts would you recommend a business to put on their website?
Yeah, I mean, the rule of thumb is no more than 3, but that's, I would say, with a designer who really knows how to pick those fonts and put them together in the right places. If you're DIYing your site, you can absolutely have a very clean, nice site with one font. Just use different sizes for the headlines. Maybe the headline font is a little bit bigger. Maybe it's a little thicker weight. There's a lot you can do with the same font to make it look a lot different. Typically, I stick with 2 fonts for my sites, one for a headline font and then one for the body font for the text, and make sure they contrast enough. A lot of times you might pick 2 fonts that you really like, but they're really similar too. That's not a great, there's not enough contrast to make that look nice. So if you pick 2 contrasting fonts, use one for the headlines and one for the body, that's the sweet spot that I found.
Now, when we first started out in our interview, you talked about everybody, go look at your website, right? Take a look at it, scan through it. What is one thing you've talked about so many wonderful positive things, do this, do this, do this. What is one thing that you would say, if you're going to look at your website, like just don't do or don't have on your website?
Yeah, I would say stock photos. So for a business that has an actual location, I know people are like, but they're great photos. They look so great when you buy a stock photo. But if you have an actual location, you need photos of your real location, your real clients, your real instructors. That's the one thing that if you're using stock photos, maybe you just use that temporarily when you got your site up and never swapped them. If you're using stock photos, that's going to kill your credibility and your trust right away, because everyone knows a stock photo when we see it. So stock photos, and then closely related second on that, if your photos are off a phone and they're really dimly lit and they're just not great quality, that's going to scream. You could have the best headlines, the best text, the best offer, everything. And if your photos look really dingy and dark, you're just not going to present your business in a good light. So I think a great investment before you get a website, and most of my clients do this, is to hire a local photographer. It can be a family or wedding photographer, but someone who knows about lighting, who can set your studio space up, to look best with what you've got to work. Maybe bring in some extra lights, get some photos from some real clients. Those photos can go a long way for upping the level of your website and also for marketing purposes too. So stay away from stock photos and improve your photos if you think that they're not really all that great.
Connie, thank you so much for coming on to the episode today. I just loved all your little nuggets. You had lots of good information about website design.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dory. It was fun. So happy to be here.
Yeah, you just had so much great information, but I'm dying to ask you, we talked a little bit about trends and aesthetics of website. Do you have a favorite color that you like to use for websites?
I do, and it's actually on my own website, but I love those shades of lime green or citrons. I just think it's so fun and energetic and kind of an unexpected color. So I would say lime green would be my favorite color.
Oh, that's a good one. I like, which one I like sometimes when I see is orange. Sometimes people do orange. And
yes, I love those like juicy orange colors that has like a pinky orange together too. Those are pretty.
Yeah, but I'm far from a web designer, so.
Everyone loves color, so.
Well, Connie, I can't thank you enough, like I said, for coming on. I'm so glad our paths crossed at Ursa. I think you're such a great, fresh voice to have here on our podcast.
Absolutely. Anytime, Dory. I love being here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in today, and also a special thank you to our guest, Connie Holen. If you would like to reach out to Connie, her contact information is located in our show notes, which can be seen at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Or we can make life pretty easy on you if you subscribe to the show notes. Then they'll be automatically delivered to your inbox. Subscribe to the show notes at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. In 30 seconds, I will introduce you to next week's guest, Ian Mullane from Keep Me, who just happens to be one of our amazing sponsors.
G'day, it's JT here, and I was talking to Blair McCaney, the CEO of one of our sponsors, MX Metrics, the other day, and I gave him a hard time about his company's tagline, defeating mediocrity. By definition, that means he's excluding the majority of the market. But Blair just wouldn't budge. He only wants to work with operators who want to punch mediocrity in the face, really smash it. So I've talked to a few of his customers, like Joe Shirelli from Gainesville Health and Fitness, and yeah, it's for real. While Joe is a nice guy, he isn't satisfied with mediocrity either. He's crushing it as well. So I'm still dubious about selling only to operators who want to defeat mediocrity. But if this resonates with you, I reckon you should check them out. Go to mxmetrics.com. But remember, only if you're interested in smashing mediocrity.
Quickfire 5.
Put your hands together for Ian Mullane, CEO of Keep Me, as we listen to his answers to our Quickfire 5 questions. It is time for our Quick Fire 5 questions. This week, I have Ian Mullane with me today. He is the CEO of Keep Me, which is an artificial intelligence revenue acceleration CRM for fitness operators. Ian, welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast.
Thank you for having me on.
Great. So I'm going to put you through 4 brutal questions. Can't wait to hear your answer. And then the 5th one is going to be your elevator pitch on why everybody should come back next week to hear your episode.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. First one is, what is a life lesson you learned from the pandemic?
Gosh, how many could you start with there? Most simple one was that time, the excuse I've used for not doing so many things, actually proved to be not the reason why I was not doing the things. Because when I got that increased quantity of time, whether it be through not traveling anymore or not commuting, certain things on the to-do list still did not get done. So the lesson that I've taught myself through all of this is that priority is the main point which I need to work with. So I have now implemented a hell yeah or a hell no. And, there's a lot more hell no's these days on relative to what I will or will not engage in. And the ones that hell yeah, most definitely they are the ones which I'm going to focus on and actually do, and not ever again utilize time as the reason.
I like your honesty on that one. That one's really good. All right. Number 2, here we go. If you could play a character in any movie, what character would you play?
I have no idea. My wife thinks Shrek. And, I'm not going to even comment on that particular one. Beyond that, I suppose, if I haven't got anything to add to that, then I'm going to have to say Shrek and live with it.
All right. And you know what? I'm not even going to ask why she chose Shrek. We'll just, like you said, we'll leave it at Shrek. And I'm just going to transition into our next question.
Good idea.
And hopefully this is a little easier for you. What is a book recommendation that you could give to our entire Fitness Business Podcast family?
Listen, that's an even harder one for me. Reading something I do for a couple of hours every day. I go through 50 odd books a year. Listen, I think that anything by Yuval Harari, by Steven Pinker, any of those individuals is great. The one I've just put down, which I finished very recently, was a book called Exponential by Azim Azhar. And that basically looks at how technology is increasing at an incredible pace and how we as a race can find our place within it to actually harness it and take advantage of it.
Well, I think that is a perfect segue into our 5th and final question, because you are going to talk about technology in your upcoming episode. So please, I'd just love for you to take about 30 seconds to just give us your elevator pitch on why everybody should come back for your episode next week.
Well, the conversation that I very much want to have is to help people to understand that the pace of technological change, particularly in our industry, is only accelerating. But we have an opportunity to seize it, to actually make it to our advantage. As an industry, we haven't always been the quickest when it comes to the adoption. We're related to maybe other consumer-led sectors, but we have got a huge opportunity. The pandemic has probably accelerated aspects of it, but the ideas which I would like to be able to discuss and present were ones which operators could seize on, take advantage of, and hopefully over the coming 12 to 18 months to 2 years, actually found themselves stronger by looking and understanding how digital is going to change our industry for the better.
So for FBP family, if you are looking for more information about technology, please come back next week. Ian Milan is going to talk about making technology work for you. Looking forward to it.
Fitness Business Podcast friends and family, you're not going to want to miss this next Thinking Ahead show here on the Fitness Business Podcast with me, your host, Jason Stoll. We sit down with President and CEO David Flench of the Medical Fitness Association and discuss the deepening integration between medical wellness and the fitness industry. You're not going to want to miss this one.
I don't know about you, but I am looking forward to all of the helpful information that Ian is going to deliver about making technology work for you. Now, if you're anything like me when it comes to technology, you will take all of the help that you can get. It should be a great show. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player, or even better yet, let us do the work for you and we will send you the show. Subscribe at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. I'd like to give a big shout out to our founding partner, Active Management, as well as our partners, Keep Me, MyZone, Discover Strength, Tribe Team Training, and One Fit Stop. Our advertisers as well, Rex Roundtables, MX Metrics, and Vaporfresh. We believe what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but woven into the lives of others.